Hello and welcome to Creation Watch, where we explore all the different theories about how our world came to be and the nature of existence itself. This is Creation Watch. All right. And we are back to the basics because we are talking about evolution yet again, which I know people come for, so I'm going to keep talking about because I love talking about evolution and hydrating. Yes. There we go. All right, and thank you so much for joining me this evening. We're looking at I believe this is a new channel. I don't think we've covered these guys before. So that's going to be a treat to see who and what they are and what they have to offer. This is, let me bring it up for everyone to see. See here, we're gonna do, there we go. Yeah, sorry, takes me a second to do this. It's doing your own production and doing, yeah, here we go. So this is Tomorrow's World. They have us such bangers as tithing, the biblical key to financial peace of mind, the future of Christianity and the end of religious diversity, 7 keys to lasting happiness, strategies for finding happiness and achieving real success. The devil is real. But we're going to be talking about these 4 proofs here. Why evolution is not true. 4 major flaws exposed. So buckle in, bucko. We are in for quite the ride. All right, this should be a fun one. Should be a fun one. All right, come on. What's going on with the sound? I'll get y'all, don't worry. There you are. I added y'all to the sound deck, so.
It's been called one of the most powerful and influential scientific theories in history. The theory of evolution by natural selection, first published well more than a century ago by Charles Darwin. And its powerful influence on life in virtually every realm of understanding would indeed be hard to overestimate. But is it true? Many would respond, of course, evolution has been proven true 1,000 times over. All the evidence we have says evolution is a fact of nature. But is the evidence really that solid? Is the theory of evolution really indisputable?
Yes. Yes, it is. Thank you for joining me tonight in Creation. No, we'll let him talk more. I do like this old-timey cladogram, though. Because it's got like categories like beast of prey and beaked animals. It's really weird. Hold on, my door is cracked open. Oh. There you go. Yeah, it's got hooved animals, which ungulata, and it does actually have pouched animals as being part of what leads down that way, and it's got sloths is closer related to sloths is semi-apes, Lemuridia, semi-apes, and it has bats on there too. Bats are semi-apes on this old-timey cladogram. I like these. I think they're fun to look at and see how they used to categorize things. Beaked animals, I'm guessing, is probably going to be platypus and echidnas. So going to be the monotremes is what this branch here is supposed to be. Beast of prey, I can only assume they're talking about carnivora, which is funny because rodents would be closer related to man than to carnivora. You could put pangolins where you have rodents, though. Pangolins could go there. Pouched animals. Just pouched animals. Well, let them continue.
No, it is not. And today we'll pull back the curtain on some of the evidence that many evolutionists would prefer you not see.
All right, Wallace.
Join us for this episode of Tomorrow's World, where we will expose some of evolution's dirty little secrets.
I'm all like, wow, it's going to be Darwin and Wallace all over again. Except for I'm going to be Bree Darwin. That's going to be my new last name. Hey, Bandaya got stung. Bandaya stung themselves. Oh, goodness.
Welcome to Tomorrow's World, where we help you understand your world through the pages of the Bible. And our topic today might seem far removed from those pages, the theory of evolution. It is perhaps one of the single most influential scientific theories in history, with immeasurable impact on science, philosophy, education, politics, and religion. And we are assured by many that it is undoubtedly true, that no one of any intelligence or education would even dare to question it. Well, today we will dare to question it, because while evolution puts up a good front, it has a long...
Who's we, Wallace? Is that you, Wallace? Because I don't think you have the scruples to take down evolution. I don't know who you are, Wallace Smith.
Long list of dirty little secrets that you don't tend to hear about in your classrooms or television programming.
That tie is sexy, though, I gotta say.
And the more you learn about what evolution has to hide, the more you wonder why so many put faith in an idea that remains unproven.
What are we
It's
hiding?
a big topic and we'll only scratch the surface today. Now, before we begin, let's understand what we mean by evolution. Claiming that life began in a vastly simpler form, similar perhaps to a microscopic bacterium, the theory of...
Well, no, the theory of evolution doesn't really say anything about how life began, right? There are, for evolution, for change from one organism to another, there already has to be life. By just by the fact that that evolution is life changing from one form to another. How can life change from one form to another if there's no pre-existing life? So you're talking about abiogenesis again, which is a conversation to be had, but not evolution like you're talking about in this topic here. And saying that early life was like a bacterium in general is sort of an oversimplification, but I guess I can't push back too hard on that because that's the way we learned it in school too.
Evolution says that over billions of years, life changed slowly, that the struggle for survival rewarded slight random variations in the descendants of that life form that gave them an edge, perhaps allowing them to find food faster or reproduce more successfully. And
it's not so much an edge, it's that it didn't give them a disadvantage. People like to flip the script on that. It's not the best. It's the least detrimental. Because that's what the line is. If you can survive with this feature, and if this feature helps you reproduce or doesn't hinder you in reproduction, it can hinder you in day-to-day life even. You know, you can have toe thumbs or whatever, and pass that on in your lineage, but it's not a benefit. It's just something that's not really hurting your survival success. I don't know. It's so weird to put it as only the best of the best survive. No, only the worst of the worst get cut out, and then everything. We're all survivors. Everything alive today, these students of nature that you think of is not really successful. The panda, which struggles to reproduce, is viable. It's a viable organism that can sustain itself or could sustain itself in its environment until humans came around. But that's neither here nor there. That animal that we have such a hard time getting to breed and sustain its own population was good enough to survive. So it's oversimplification to say that only the best of the best survive. And also it's an oversimplification to say that it's random, because each individual is choosing their mates. It's not unguided. Organisms themselves are selecting. That's what natural selection means. There's selection there. Choices are being made. Choices are presented, and a decision is being made. We can see this in organisms as simple as the slime mold. Please just stop.
Similarly, it punished those descendants whose random adaptations were less favorable for survival. In this way, and through this unintelligent, unguided process, evolution says those microscopic bacteria-like organisms a few billion years ago have been able to turn into the astonishing variety of life forms we see today, including us. No divine designer or creator necessary.
Correct.
Not long ago, Sotheby's, the famous auction house, offered a first edition of Charles Darwin's book on the origin of species by means of natural selection, or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life, published in 1859. The book in which he first published the theory of evolution. Now, at least when I saw it, Sotheby's recommended estimate for the book was $250,000 to $300,000.
Right, because it's a famous Victorian work of science, but it's not modern science.
You might think, why so high? It's just a book. Well, there are numerous
because it's from the 1850s. Most books from the 1850s are going to have a high price tag. I promise. I promise that you're not going to find books from the 1850s that are cheap.
Factors, but the book's role in human history is perhaps the greatest. Sotheby's calls the book one of the greatest achievements of scientific discovery. Referring to Darwin's book, science historian Bern Dibner once wrote, "This, the most important single work in science, brought man to his true place in nature." High-sounding praise, to be sure. But is it accurate?
No, because Darwin didn't know about genetics. Darwin didn't know about DNA. All that stuff that came out later is what vindicated him. So I have a feeling you're going to make a lot of claims about what he said in the 1850s. Yeah, which is not going to be relevant to today because we've... Yeah.
That depends, of course, on whether the theory is true. If all life as we know it today is the result of nothing but mindless processes, then yes.
No, many of the organisms had a mind, a brain. They had features that you're just saying that they didn't have, that you just claimed that they didn't have.
Darwin's book is a towering achievement in human history, a monumental discovery that does truly put man in his place as nothing special, nothing remarkable. Just a random life form on a random planet. And life, it turns out, has no real meaning at all.
Right, exactly, like the appendix. When we ate a lot more seeds and stuff, having an appendix was more beneficial. We don't have that. We don't have that need to keep seeds and nuts and stuff as much as we used to.
All. Again, if that theory is true. Now, of course, many claim it is true and claim so very loudly. Evolutionary apologist Jerry Coyne writes in his popular book,
Evolutionary apologist? What?
Book, Why Evolution is True. Evolution is a fact, and far from casting doubt on Darwinism, the evidence gathered by scientists over the past century and a half supports it completely, showing that evolution happened and that it happened largely as Darwin proposed, through the workings of natural selection.
True.
Of course, many want it to be true. Evolution
It is true. It is true. We see it. It's proven. It's true.
has become an escape hatch for those who want to explain away.
You haven't said anything to dispute it at all. You've not said a single thing to refute evolution.
The beautiful diversity and complexity of life without a creator. As famous biologist Richard Dawkins once said, Darwin made it possible to be an intellectually fulfilled atheist. Is he right?
Is that what's wrong with that? Being intellectually fulfilled and being an atheist. What's the issue? Why you got a problem with that, Wallace?
Again, only if evolution has been proven true. And in fact, it is not.
You keep claiming that and insisting that, but you haven't shown that. You haven't even demonstrated anything yet. Hopefully, yeah, you'll get into these Second dirty little. Okay, we're getting into the dirty little secrets here. We're seconds away, and I'm just being impatient.
Despite claims that all the evidence supports it completely, the truth is that evolution has a whole host of dirty little secrets that our classrooms and popular science programs don't talk about too loudly. The first dirty little secret of evolution is this: even the simplest living cell is devastating to the theory of evolution. In Darwin's day, little was known about cells. Single-celled organisms like amoebas were described by Charles Darwin's contemporary George Henry Lewis as simply a microscopic lump of jelly-like substance or protoplasm.
Yeah, because they couldn't see, right? They couldn't see that fine details because the technology hadn't gotten there yet. We can now. You understand that?
Entirely
it's not 1887 anymore.
Destitute of texture and consequently destitute of organs. In other cells, such as those in our body, a nucleus could be seen, but its purpose was a mystery and the cell seemed otherwise generally featureless. In such days when the smallest, simplest unit of life seemed that simple, just a bit of jelly with a few boring features, it was easy to imagine somehow within that mysterious, life-giving jelly, anything could happen. But as microscopes improved and techniques were developed to tease out the secrets of the inner world of the cell, we have discovered that this supposedly simple, jelly-like substance is filled with machinery of astonishing complexity.
It's filled with DNA, right? So let's say that, yes, before they could see that small of stuff, I didn't realize how complex and how complex the inner workings of the microscopic world were. That doesn't mean that evolution's not true. I don't know why it would. That microscopic life is just as complex, if not more complex, as macro life, and that microscopic, the temporal state of microscopic mechanics and organisms is different than our own.
Ingenuity and design. The world of the human cell, for instance, is one in which approximately 1 billion chemical reactions take place every single second.
Scary big numbers. I know, big numbers can be scary.
And these are not random chemical reactions.
Nope.
A human cell is filled with...
That's why I keep wondering why you keep saying random, because none of this is random. You're just insisting that it's random when it's actually selected. When an organism shares its DNA to procreate with another organism, it selects the other organism. It makes that selection.
Thousands upon thousands of proteins of 10,000 different varieties. Molecular machines designed to work together to achieve specific purposes, manipulating their surroundings, creating new structures, and dismantling old ones in a dynamic dance of complexity that would make the space shuttle seem simple.
Yes, right. You're getting it, Wallace. Evolution happens on the tiniest of scales. And it can happen quickly, it can happen slowly. Depends on the pressures that the organisms are under.
Life is impossible without these complex machines, and even small changes.
Modern life is impossible without these complex machines. Back when they didn't have to compete with the complex lives and machines that are in place already, they got to be more experimental.
Changes to organisms, as hypothesized by evolution, requires changes to these machines, even the design of new machines. And that is as unlikely as it sounds. Biochemist Douglas Axe has examined the probability of even one protein of any significant functionality at all forming by chance and estimated it to be 1 in 10 to the 64. That is 1 out of a number that is a 1 followed by 64 zeros. Along with colleague Ann Gager, Axe explored the possibility that one protein could evolve from another similar one based on just a handful of necessary changes to DNA. and found that at currently understood rates of mutation, it would take 10 to the 27 years for such a change to take place. Again, that's a 1 followed by 27 zeros. Impressive given that scientists think our universe is only 13 billion years old, or about a 1 followed by 10 zeros. In other words,
right. This is indicative, not indicative of the age being, or of the mutation rate being constant, right? What we see now and the way that organisms differentiate is different than what it would have been like in prebiotic or early biotic world, right? Where we have, depending on which model turns out to be true, there's going to be other factors that come into play to how fast and prominent these mutations and changes take place within the organism's germline.
It's just not going to happen apart from intelligent intervention. Again, even the simple...
But it did. What are you going to do? It did happen. We're just going to have to figure out what caused it to happen, because all the other information that we have points towards common descent from organism for all living organisms.
Living cell is devastating to the theory of evolution. We mentioned DNA a moment ago, and the nature of DNA is another of evolution's dirty little secrets, because DNA represents an abstract coding system that points to intelligence. Deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA for short, was unknown in Darwin's day, and is the molecule responsible for carrying the information needed to build all of the proteins that make life possible. Each nucleus in each individual...
Yeah, that's what I was talking about when you were saying the nucleus. It was just a protoplasm or something. No, there's DNA in there. We just didn't understand it back then in Darwin's day. Now you seem to be pushing that message. Make up your mind, sir.
Individual normal cell in your body contains about 2 meters of DNA packed into a microscopic dot, all of it containing the information needed to build you. DNA uses base pairs combining 4 different compounds that act like the ones and zeros in computer code, detailing to the cellular machinery the information needed to build all of the complex proteins life requires. Information from the DNA is carried from place to place.
So is this whole video just going to be arguments from incredulity? You're like, we don't know how to make this, how this was made, how this could come out not naturally, therefore God, which is just look at the trees, look at the DNA, I guess, is the new argument.
Place where proteins read the code and assemble new proteins from precisely sequenced amino acids based on that information, making every one of your cells a complex chemical factory, creating purposefully arranged nanoscopic machinery and some of the most complicated chemical compounds found anywhere in the universe. But where did this abstract programming code originate? Evolution can't take credit. It's a mindless, purposeless process.
Not mindless, not purposeless. There are lots of minds attached to the evolutionary process, and there's lots of purpose that that organisms develop characteristics or favor characteristics in response to. So no, everything you just said is false. It's not mindless. It's not purposeless. The organisms that are trying to procreate, that is their purpose. Generally, that's the only innate purpose of most organisms is that to propagate their genetic material forward. Other than that, you don't need any other purpose. That's the driving force. Whatever develops in in tandem with that is going to be in order to favor its survival long enough to mate. Like skin, for instance. You develop skin to keep you from suffering from UV light, to give you time to mature so you can pass on your genetics. That's all linked into choosing your mate. I'm sorry.
Yes, remember? In fact, where did DNA come from? You can't build proteins without DNA. and yet DNA is itself assembled by proteins. The discovery
RNA
of DNA should have been a great success for evolution. The secret to how the characteristics of life are passed on to our descendants was finally unveiled. But it has been a disaster. The idea of a...
Just because it's confusing to you doesn't mean it was a disaster. Like the stuff I just explained there. We know quite a bit about the origins of DNA and how it's formed.
Massive information-rich molecule containing an abstract...
Do you see how they depend on their audience not knowing how this stuff works? You see how they depend on them not knowing that we have fundamental understandings of the development of DNA? We see all the steps from RNA to DNA in place in nature.
Programming code capable of bearing the information needed to build all the complex machinery of life is incompatible with the idea that life has supposedly grown in complexity through mindless natural processes.
Not mindless. Will you stop saying they're mindless, you silly, silly man? It's selective, not mindless.
Evolutionists cannot avoid the fact that DNA represents an abstract coding system that points to intelligence. Our next dirty secret of evolution is an opportunity to turn the tables a bit. In short, the gaps in the fossil record since Darwin's day have gotten worse, not better. The theory of evolution...
Okay, let me say that this is going to be a Dr. Banjo argument. Do you guys think this is going to be a Dr. Banjo argument? That's where... hold on, let me see if I can... Maybe I can share it and it'll let me.
Understand evolution, and I have to protect my kids from understanding it. We will not give in to the thinkers.
You people are as loud as you are ignorant. Now get back on your turnip trucks and go home. That is an insultingly accurate stereotype, sir. As a professor of science, I assure you that we did, in fact, evolve from filthy monkey men.
I cannot speak for you, sir, but my ancestors were not monkeys. They were orangutans, hard-working, patriotic orangutans.
Dr. Banjo?
In the fur. And I remind you that evolution is merely a theory, like gravity or the shape of the earth.
Hey, Professor, I'm a flying spaghetti monster. You seriously believe I'm descended from some kind of flightless manicotti?
Yes!
Oh, please. A far more logical explanation is the undisprovable science of creaturism. All life was created in its present form 7,000 years ago by a fantastical creature from outer space.
Bunk!
Oh? If your elitist East Coast evolution is real, why has no one found the missing link between modern humans and ancient apes?
We did find it. It's called Homo erectus.
Then you have proven my case, sir. For no one has found the link between apes and this Homo erectus.
Yes, they have. It's called Homo habilis.
Aha! But no one has found the missing link between ape and the so-called Homo habilis.
Yes, they have. It's called Australopithecus africanus.
Oh, I've got you now. Fair enough. But where, then, is the missing link between apes and this Darwinius Macilli? Answer me that, Professor.
Oh, okay, granted that one missing link is still missing. But just because we haven't found it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Pshaw! Things don't exist simply because you believe in them. Thus saith the almighty creature in the sky!
There you go. Yeah. I anticipate that's the argument we're going to get here. So let's see.
Depends on the slow and steady accumulation of small variations, since large jumps in changes would imply an active designer or planner. The result should be a smooth transition in the fossil record, with animals
No, because you have a punctuated equilibrium driven by environmental factors, my friend. A lot of different things are going to come into play as to why and how these changes take place and how fast they take place, what lives, what dies. There's going to be extinction events. There's going to be faunal shifts. There's going to be climate change. There's going to be extirpation, especially in modern times, by predatory species that they can't compete against.
Gradually, almost imperceptibly, turning into new animals through small, smooth changes. But this is not what the fossil record shows. Instead of a smooth, continuous transition of creatures, the record indicates gaps between different kinds of creatures. As Michael Denton wrote in his seminal work, Evolution, A Theory in Crisis, the overall picture of life on Earth today is so discontinuous, the gaps between the different types so obvious, that as Stephen Stanley reminds us in his recent book, Macroevolution, if our knowledge of biology was restricted to those species presently existing on Earth, we might wonder whether the doctrine of evolution would qualify as anything more than an outrageous hypothesis.
He just said if we didn't have the fossil record, if we didn't have the slow changes that you're talking about, the transitional species that you're going to insist we don't have, then it would be outrageous. But we do have the transitional species, my friend. Please, Wallace.
Without intermediates or transitional forms to bridge the enormous gaps which separate existing species and groups of organisms, the concept of evolution could never be taken seriously as a scientific hypothesis.
You just read the quiet part out loud, dude. You aren't supposed to say that if we didn't have the fossil record to confirm it. You're not supposed to tell us that part. You're supposed to cherry pick that out. I have to teach Wallace how to do apologetics.
Of course, seemingly continuous lines of some animals are trotted out for display to pretend the gaps are not nearly as damaging as they are. For instance, you will see theoretical sequences for whale, horse, and human evolution. Yet not only are these sequences themselves deceptive and not proven lines of descent at all, the fact remains that if evolution is—
Why are they deceptive, you tool? What's deceptive about them? Don't be throwing shade at people who do this research. What's your problem, mate?
True, these sorts of sequences should be the norm, not the rare exception. Ironically, evolutionists often accuse believers of having faith in a God of the gaps, who magically does all the things they cannot explain. Such a misunderstanding aside, the unexplainable gaps in the fossil record, a thorn in Darwin's side that remains just as thorny more than 150 years later.
It's not though. It's just because every time we find an individual organism, right, it creates a gap between it and its last common ancestor with another lineage, with a sister lineage, and its descendants. So every time that if it left any descendants, or its last surviving ancestor or descendant, whichever the case may be, its living descendant or last surviving descendant, it creates two gaps between there. So unless we had like a parent to child lineage, you're never going to accept anything that we offer you, which is weird and disingenuous.
Later, turn the tables and put evolutionists in the place of wielding blind faith and believing in a Darwin of the gaps. For our next dirty secret, all you need to do is look in the mirror at your remarkable evolution-defying eyes. Because evolution continues to offer no good explanation for how new organs can form. In the Psalms, King David praises God and proclaims to his Creator, "I am fearfully and wonderfully made." And we see part of that wonder in the organs of the body, such as the eye. After all, organs represent not just specialized tissues, but interwoven systems, often systems upon systems, finely tuned and exquisitely structured to work together. And if one part is missing, the whole can fail.
But they don't have to evolve individually. They can evolve in tandem. They can evolve like at the same time.
Improving the entire organ would often involve each piece or part evolving in conjunction with all the other pieces in a coordinated way.
Right.
A coordination that evolution does not allow. The problem was summarized.
We have every step along the way, from a simple photoreceptive cell on the surface of the organism all the way to the complex camera eyes and compound eyes of the animal kingdom.
Not long ago in an article in The Guardian. First, the paper gives the traditional explanation for the supposed evolution of the eye, given by thousands of teachers over the decades to tens of thousands of students. Animals that have light-sensitive cells for some reason experience a series of slight mutations that increasingly give them survival advantages, such as the slight cupping of the flesh around the cells that helps to focus the light, a clear covering of some sort eventually to seal the space, which slowly becomes a lens. Then muscles arrive to shape and focus the lens better, etc. The Guardian continues, "This is the basic story of evolution as recounted in countless textbooks and pop science bestsellers. The problem, according to a growing number of scientists, is that it is absurdly crude and misleading. For one thing, it starts midway through the story, taking for granted the existence of light-sensitive cells, lenses, and irises without explaining where they came from in the first place.
We do explain where they came from in the first place. Again, we have all of these from simple photoreceptor cells all the way up through like ocelli eye spots, which are maybe underneath a skin cell that still picks up light and dark and maybe some movements. We have those going to an advanced, a more advanced with actual retina that we see in the Tuatara. They actually have a retina on their third eye on the top of their head. The Tuatara does, and then we have simple camera eyes like you see in a like a jumping spider. We have all the steps along the way, friend.
Nor does it adequately explain how such delicate and easily disrupted components mesh together to form a single organ. And it isn't just eyes that the traditional theory struggles with. The first eye, the first wing, the first placenta, how they emerge. Explaining these is the foundational motivation of evolutionary biology, says Armin Moczek, a biologist at Indiana University. In short, evolution promises us it can explain the organs of our bodies and how they supposedly formed gradually over millennia, but in reality,
we actually have them. We see them. We can demonstrate that. Why are you ignoring that? That we do have those, all the steps along the way. We have all the different chambers of hearts. We have all the different types of eyes forming.
Reality, it hasn't a clue. Our fourth dirty little secret, the fact that evolution continues to offer no good explanation for how new organs can form, is devastating to a theory that was developed more than 150 years ago to explain that very fact.
We also see like the evolution of the swim bladder to being lungs. We have that whole step, all the steps along the way for that, all the species with those different evolutionary partitions, if you will. We have all of the stuff that you're talking about us not having. What are you saying, Wallace?
You know, let me confess something. I know it's considered a cinema classic, but I've personally never been a big fan of The Wizard of Oz. Frankly, when I first saw it, I was a little kid, and the flying monkeys were pretty spooky. But as I've grown older, one scene has remained with me and has become a real favorite. It's close to the end of the movie as Dorothy and her band are confronting the terrifying wizard for the fact that he is failing to keep his promises. As they do so, flames shoot out, thunder crashes, and the wizard speaks to them as a giant green monstrous head hovering in the air in front of them, shouting, "Do not arouse the wrath of the great and powerful Oz." Meanwhile, Dorothy's dog Toto makes his way to a green curtain off to the left and pulls it aside to reveal a small, white-haired old man using a machine to create the illusion they're all looking at, and speaking into a microphone to...
He's going to tell this narrative without any sense of irony about his religion, is what I'm going to take away from this. Damn, I'm a pale woman. Look how pale I am. Good grief.
Amplify his voice and make it sound terrifying. My favorite part in that scene is when the old man turns around, notices they can see him, and turns back to the microphone to demand, "Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain." Well, the forces arrayed to convince people not to question the theory of evolution are very similar. There's a lot of thunder and flame, impressive proclamations about proof and evidence, and a lot of theater designed to make you think that there's nothing to doubt. But like the wizard, evolution has not kept its promises. The theory promises an explanation.
Yes, it has, and we just went through and explained them to you. It's just that you're not, you have to have a certain level of understanding to, I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but of the way that punctuated equilibrium and cell division happens, but you don't.
Explanation of your origins, an explanation that needs no God, no intelligence at all, just an initial microbe, careless natural processes, and a few billion years. We need to be willing to pull back the curtain, to not be so impressed by the theater that we don't question what we're
I hope you did, Wallace. I hope you come back and watch this and hang out with me in my hive, and yeah.
shown, and to not be so intimidated that we aren't willing to stand up and call evolution out for not keeping its promises. Or to borrow from another fiction, it might have been a hard day when you first learned Santa Claus wasn't real. But that realization brought you that much deeper into the real world and much further from
And he won't see the irony in that statement either, I assure you.
a world of make-believe. Recognizing the dirty little secrets of evolution can help you step away from the
And recognizing that this is just propaganda and there aren't actually any dirty little secrets of evolution. It's just a field of science that explains the biology and diversity that we see on Earth today.
world of make-believe as well. Yet the questions evolutionists seek to answer remain. Where do we come from? How did life come to be? Is there any purpose to it all? And if so, what might that purpose be?
There is purpose to procreate, as if that's what you want it to be. Otherwise, if you want to win the evolution game and pass on your genes, that is, if that's your goal, and that can be your purpose. But otherwise, just it's what your goal is to try to. I think the goal to try to make things better in the world. But you do you.
Purpose be? Unclouded by the evolutionary theater, you can seek the real answers to those questions. And if you really seek with an open mind and an open heart, with God's help, you will find your way to the only possible starting place in the search for those answers. The very first sentence of the Bible.
Genesis.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I hope you'll find the courage to look behind the curtain more often.
Yeah, look behind the curtain of that book.
Thanks for watching. If you're interested in the free offer that we have today, please check the description.
Yeah, look into the behind the curtain of your religion, my friend. Look behind that curtain instead. All right, so that was Creation Watch. We had the 4 major flaws exposed about evolution. I didn't find one single major flaw exposed. I found someone trying to stifle scientific curiosity, if that counts. All right, so let's see. I'm probably going to get a copyright strike for playing Futurama, but oh well. Thank you so much for joining me in Creation Watch tonight. Please remember to tune in Friday night for some Cryptic Corner, and then meet us back here Saturday morning for another installment of Live from the Hive, where you can join this crew over here and participate in the side chat on the side. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time.
I don't understand evolution, and I have to protect my kids from understanding it. We will not give in to the thinkers.
You people are as loud as you are ignorant. Now get back on your turnip trucks and go home.
That is an insultingly accurate stereotype, sir. As a professor of science, I assure you that we did in fact evolve from filthy monkey men. I cannot speak for you, sir, but my ancestors were not monkeys. They were orangutans, hard-working, patriotic orangutans.
Dr. Banjo?
In the fur. And I remind you that evolution is merely a theory, like gravity or the shape of the earth.
Hey, Professor, I'm a flying spaghetti monster. You seriously believe I'm descended from some kind of flightless manicotti?
Yes!
Oh, please. A far more logical explanation is the undisprovable science of creaturism. All life was created in its present form 7,000 years ago by a fantastical creature from outer space.
Bunk!
Oh? If your elitist East Coast evolution is real, why has no one found the missing link between modern humans and ancient apes?
We did find it. It's called Homo erectus.
Then you have proven my case, sir. For no one has found the link between apes and this Homo erectus.
Yes, they have. It's called Homo habilis.
Aha! But no one has found the missing link between ape and the so-called Homo habilis.
Yes, they have. It's called Australopithecus africanus.
Oh, I've got you now. Fair enough. But where, then, is the missing link between apes and this Darwinius Macilli? Answer me that, Professor.
Oh, okay, granted that one missing link is still missing. But just because we haven't found it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Pshaw! Things don't exist simply because you believe in them. Thus saith the almighty creature in the sky.